As a performer, I had to keep myself up every night. I had to keep myself healthy. And I read books on Pavel Del Davis, all the different gurus at that time, so I could find out how I could take care of myself and have the energy to perform hour and a half shows, sometimes 2 a night. That's how I got into the health field. I really think that it's important to figure out how the body's working and then work with it.
You know, what causes somebody to not sleep solidly, and how can you really fix that?
Drugs rob the body of something to make it work. If by chance they're on certain medications, I look at them. One of the big things with a beta blocker you'll be deficient in, melatonin. So you take the beta blocker, 2 weeks, 3 weeks later, you've got an issue because you can't sleep. So what do? Give you Ambien, which is a modified benzo. Ambien also robs the body of melatonin. So you'll sleep but not get into a deep sleep. So they're never really rested. I tell these docs all the time, especially the ones when I go to the ER and stuff, you are the best in the world at stabilizing. After you've stabilized someone, send them to someone like me that can figure out why they got the cancer in the first place.
There you go.
So you don't get
Find
it
out the
again.
root cause.
And root down and lower the risk of getting it again.
That's right. So I think this has become an epidemic because instead of all these online ordering places where it's just, you know, they've got these licenses to issue the TRT, but they don't really monitor anything and they're just shipping it out and they don't measure it. And some people will belong to more than one, and so they're getting double the amount and they're self-treating themselves, and it's a problem. Testosterone therapy has exploded. What are the real risks of taking TRT?
In life, there's a blueprint for everything. There's no need to start over. Hear from industry leaders, those at the top of their fitness journey, and real estate gurus. They tell you exactly how they did it. All you have to do is listen, learn, and execute. This is The Blueprint with Brad Rice.
All right, everybody, we're back at another edition of The Blueprint, and today I have a very special guest. This is going to be so informative today. You guys are going to love this. You're going to get a lot of great information. It's fitness related, it's health related. Man, I'm excited about this one. So I'm welcoming John Mallon. And John is a certified health coach and medically board certified in lifestyle medicine, peptide therapy, and chronic inflammatory response syndrome, and also specializing in metabolic medicine, which is getting to the root of disease, right?
Right.
And so he's the CEO of Westside Integrative Medicine in Thousand Oaks, California. He's also a longtime member of the American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine, and Seed Scientific Research and Performance. So John has become known as a go-to figure in understanding health, and he's gained invaluable clinical expertise from owning and operating 3 elderly care facilities in Chatsworth, California for about 20 years now. Yeah. So welcome, John.
Okay. Hi, welcome, Brad.
That was a mouthful.
It is,
yeah.
I know.
You probably could have done it better than I could.
Wow, who is that guy?
Who's the guy you're talking about? Ooh, me?
Yeah.
Well, welcome, man. It's good to have you here.
Well, thanks.
Boy, I am jazzed about having you today. You know, you and I spoke on the phone the other day. You started doing Alone with us, and I know your brother for many years, and we've worked together, Tim, and you know, he was a real estate agent. We did a lot of work together. I told you we were partners for a short period of time. He helped me with my tech company when I got it started. And now he's just living the life on the water in Havasu.
He loves it.
Yep, he loves
the water, loves boats. That's his thing.
But we miss him dearly. You know, you're his better looking older brother.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. No, but you knew that.
I keep telling him that too.
Well, look, you got the looks, he got the smarts.
He did get smarts.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, that's okay. He got a lot. I don't think he's complaining.
I think you both did all right. But look, man, it is good. This is our first time meeting in person.
Yeah.
And when I told people what your background was and that you were coming on, the whole office started giving me questions for you.
Oh, no.
So I got a lot of questions today.
Okay.
I got a lot.
I'll do my best to answer
them.
them.
Be ready. Be
ready.
Before I get started, why don't you tell me a little bit about kind of yourself, your history. You know, you were starting to tell me that you used to be in entertainment.
Yeah.
Give me a little bit of that, and then how you wound up where you are today, you know, with all these designations in health.
Wow. Okay. Well, I went to Michigan State University and graduated with a Bachelor of Arts in Pre-Law. I was going to go into law school, but I had a band in high school. So my band opened up for groups like Bob Seger in Detroit.
So it was a rock band.
It was a rock band.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, really loved rock. Rock
Cool.
and roll was great. So
What was the name of your band?
it was called First Century.
Okay.
So it was like the rock age,
Yep, I like it.
Yeah, so we did pretty good. Had some original stuff, but it was mainly cover. And
Okay.
played at high school dances, that
Sure.
type of thing. And then what happened was when I went to college, I paid my way through school by playing the guitar and singing. Because at that time, guys like John Denver were really big, and it was that folk style. So
Neil Diamond.
yeah, Neil Diamond. It was a single guitarist. So
I guess he wasn't a guitarist. Yeah.
no, he played guitar.
Yeah, he did.
But I did a lot of him afterwards.
Okay.
I put a whole medley of his stuff together, which was, I thought, one of my best medleys. He's great. His songs were great.
Yeah, all
And
time.
very dramatic, with the music. And I love the orchestrated music that he put together.
Yeah, there's nobody quite like him or John Denver anymore.
I know.
Yeah,
But
true.
there are a lot of good guys out
There
there.
are.
James Taylor was good. I mean,
Of course.
a lot of them. So I did that for a while through school with my band too, and I'd go and work at my parents' restaurant. They had an A&W restaurant that we changed to
Oh.
Big John's.
Okay.
Yeah, and Tim had his own burger, Tiny Tim. I never had my own burger though.
That's great.
Yeah. Anyway, we did that for a long time until I graduated, and then when I graduated, I came to making a decision as to which way I wanted to go, and I decided instead of getting into law, I wanted to take some time off, just a couple years, and get into music. So I was. They called me to be part of the Muscular Dystrophy Association in college because I raised money. So I became a national youth member for that. And
Okay.
traveled to New York a couple times, and then sort of thought about entertainment. I talked to some of the entertainers there at the time, Jerry Lewis, and they said, it's a good thing to get into. It's not an easy life, but it's enjoyable and it's rewarding. So I said, go for it. Let's do it. So I got this band, toured around Michigan for a while, Canada, did some international stuff in Europe. And then I said, well, okay, so do I want to keep doing this? And the answer, yeah, I just stayed with it. So with the band, I called in a choreographer she did Vegas. She worked with big groups in Vegas. And she said, I've got some people I want you to meet, fly them in. And I said, great. So flew in a couple people, one guy in particular, Al Anthony, saw my band and said, hey, I'm booking you at the Palm Springs Hilton Riviera.
Oh, come on.
Yeah. I went,
That's great.
Coming from Detroit.
Yeah.
I'd see these people on TV, the stars, and I think, wow, I could just meet them
Yeah.
would be really good. But to be out there in California, blue skies, sunshine, I thought, let's do it. Let's go for it.
Yeah.
So Tim played keyboards at the time.
Okay.
And we popped everybody in the van, and then drove out, caravanned out, and opened up the Hilton Riviera. We were there for probably a year, and then started doing some touring. So we went to Vegas, Tahoe, Reno, some smaller places like in Nevada, and after doing that,
Yeah, I like how you just went right over Vegas. But yes. you
well,
were in
it got
Vegas
to
too.
Vegas, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we got to Vegas.
Okay.
And it was
That's
at the
very cool.
Maxims, the Aladdin, the Sands I
Oh
performed.
my gosh.
Yeah, and we went to Reno, Tahoe, so I was at Fitzgerald's and Nevada Lodge, Harris and Harvey's in Tahoe,
Yep.
South Shore. So we did that, and I decided that I wanted to keep, it was like the carrot that dangled. We got this could happen, and we're going to take you here and do this. So I just kept doing it, and I wrote some original music, but I didn't really do much with it until I got into the Los Angeles area. And then I kind of put everything on hold. I thought, I want to be an actor. Maybe I can bring music in that way.
Okay.
So I took some acting classes, and when I was up performing at the Hilton Riviera, at the Hilton in Lake Arrowhead, a gentleman came, saw my show, and he said, hey, John, afterwards he said, I really enjoyed your show. He said, do you act? And I said, did it look like I was enjoying myself? He goes, yeah. I said, then I act.
That's good.
So ended up, he's talking to him, and he said, John, listen, what I'd like to do is, I'd like to introduce you to some people. Do you ever get down to the LA area? I said, I'm up here now working on some music, so maybe in a couple months, because I've got a lot to do. He goes, okay. His name was Bob Goomer. He was with Columbia Pictures. He was head of comedy development. So anyway, a couple months later or so, I called his office. I was surprised he remembered me, because his secretary goes, John, oh, just a minute. He'll call you back. So he goes, John, are you coming down to L.A.? I said, yeah, I'll be down. He says, great. He says, because I'd love to introduce you to some people. Let me call you back. So he called me back and said, can you come down by 11 o'clock? I said, sure. So went down by 11 o'clock. He had me set up with Dora Saba, who cast Crazy Like a Fox and Days of Our Lives, and then also Jeff Ocean, who's head of casting for Columbia Pictures. And I sat down with Doris. I went into her office first, and the receptionist said, okay, John, here's your script. I said, script? I'm not going to do, I'm just not reading. I'm just going to meet her. He said, no, John, you're here to read. Oh, gee, okay, all right. So at that time, I really didn't take things too seriously about that. And so I got the script, went through it, went in, and she goes, okay, John, you ready to read? I said, yeah, ready. So just had fun with it. I just had fun. And afterwards, she goes, wonderful. I said, what? She said, a lot of times when these execs call people in, I just don't really feel, I don't know, like they're doing me favor because sometimes they're not as good as they could be. So she said, but you're wonderful. I can use you. I said, okay, Doris, tell you what, when you get that part that needs me, give me a call. And I walked out. So it was about, I don't know, 3 weeks later or so, I get a call from her. She goes, John, listen, I've got this script here for you to come in for Days of Our Lives. I said, wow. Okay. I said, so am I going to come in to read? She goes, what do you mean read? She said, you got the part.
You already did that. That's great.
Then you stop and think, I got the part? Oh, now what do I do?
That's awesome.
So I went in and I did a few episodes of that.
That's great.
They called it a 10 lines here and there.
Okay.
A recurring role.
Are you still getting paid on those?
I did, yeah.
Yeah?
Not big bucks.
No, I mean, are you still?
No.
Oh,
No,
they're
that's
not
long
re-airing
past.
those anymore?
No.
Okay. But for a while, right?
For a while, you
the
do the
residuals.
show, and it's pretty interesting how it works. It's intense.
Yeah, it's so interesting. So I mean, that all sounds like really fun youth. But then, how did you get from that, which is so far from what you do now today with health and that sort of thing? How did you make that?
Well, as a performer,
transition?
I had to keep myself up every night.
Okay.
I was the John Mallon show. So if John Mallon didn't go on, I played 7 instruments and I sang all kinds of medleys and stuff, then we wouldn't get paid.
Yep.
So that's motivation. I had to keep myself healthy. And I read books on Pavel Rolla, Adele Davis, Norman Walker, all the different gurus at that time, so I could find out how I could take care of myself and have the energy to perform hour and a half shows, sometimes 2 a night.
Sure.
That's how I got into the health field.
Okay.
I needed it. I call it my hobby. Then I started helping family, friends, and people benefited. I saw it worked. I said, this is cool.
Yeah.
So that's how I got into the health field. I was doing it all along, even out of college. My roommate from college got married, and his wife called me after we graduated. She goes, John, she says, my dad's got melanoma. She said, what would you do? I said, well, that's a tough one, but I think I would go down to the Gerson Clinic because they've got programs there to clean the body, to rebuild it, and I'm into doing that. I really think that it's important to figure out how the body's working and then work with it.
Okay.
So she said, okay, and Dr. Piersma was his name, and it's interesting because he went down and got treated, got in a program, and this is when he was like, I think 60 years old. He lived to be 85. And melanoma, very difficult. He had a friend that went through the experimental therapy, and his friend ended up dying in 6 months.
Okay.
So I saw it worked again and again and again. And that's how we kind of...
And this is kind of, it goes down to your belief that you need to detect the root cause and treat that and not just treat the symptoms, right?
Right. Not just medicate the symptoms.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I just carried that through, and that's why I'm doing what I'm doing now. I think it's really important to get it out there and help a lot of people understand what's going on with them, especially the ones with chronic ailments.
Sure.
And my understanding is, according to Kennedy, 75% of the population of America has chronic illness.
What do you think the one myth about aging is that you wish everybody knew?
I'd say if you're considering joining the AmeriFund team, it's a really good idea.
We as processors at AmeriFund Home Loans support the loan officers in every aspect of the loan once it comes into processing because we want them out there marketing themselves and originating more loans and supporting more borrowers.
Competitive commission plans are a given, and powerful technology is expected, but what truly sets us apart is our culture. We've built a solid support system for our loan officers.
If you're interested in joining the AmeriFund team, go to amerifund.com/careers.
That once you hit a certain age, you're going to experience certain things. It's just not true. There's something called genetics, right? So genetics gives you the predisposition. You've got certain genes that will dictate basically your hair color, your height, all those types of things. But then there's something called genomics. Genomics are which genes are turned on and turned off. And likening it to music, which I do a lot, it's like a symphony orchestra. If everybody plays the notes in time, at the right time, it's a beautiful symphony. It's a beautiful sound. It's music. If by chance everybody plays whatever they want, loud, you've got cacophony. So if you have to get it so that these cell signal transductions in the cell, the messaging system between the genes and it ends up to be protein folding. I told you I'm trying not to get into science, but the idea is you want to make sure that everything is working in harmony and that you want to tone down the noise so that the body can function properly. And that's basically how it works.
Okay. So how do you do that?
You influence it by lifestyle. So are you getting enough sleep? Are you eating the right foods? What about any toxic levels that you have? When you eat the foods, are they breaking them down? Body breaking them down into like proteins to peptides and then to amino acids? Or is it going into your circulatory system because of what's called leaky gut? So you have these tight junctions and you've got the mucosal barrier. There are different barriers in the body protecting it. Like in the gut, the epithelial lining is lined up with these junctions. If by chance they're open, then the food gets into the circulatory system and causes inflammation. So you get a lot of inflammation. It's called endotoxins. The body actually produces those toxins. And there's a way of fixing that. You have to fix how the gut operates. Once you do, then you're able to break down the foods properly. The body nourishes the organs and tissues and bones and everything. So you can be eating the best of diet, the best of foods, and still not getting the nutrients.
How is that?
Because you've got these junctions that are open, and when it gets in, again, the food turns into an antigen or an enemy of the body. And when that happens, you cause inflammation. So the inflammation causes issues with everything.
Yeah. So how does somebody know? Okay, let me back up for a second. How do you know if you're eating the right foods?
Well, there are tests you can take, and also symptoms. So I've got a program called the Metabolic Code System. What it does is I've got 140 questions, and I take the questions and put them in order of importance when it comes to the metabolic triads. So I have 5 metabolic triads I work with. One is gut, immune, brain. The other is pancreas, the adrenal, thyroid. You've got liver, lymph, kidney. And then you've got the cardiovascular, neurovascular, and pulmonary. And then more of the hormones. So you have estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. When they come back, when they fill out the form, it comes back to me, and I take a look at the triads and see what the score is, because everything's scored. And just from that alone, I can see what's going on with someone. So that's one approach, just the symptom approach. Then I do labs, but I do more labs technically than your conventional doc. I'll pull up, for example, thyroid, and I'll pull up not just the TSH, but free T3, free T4, TPO, which is the body's basically creating some type of, it could be an autoimmune issue or whatever, thyroid peroxidase, then also reverse T3. There are a lot of different things I pull to find out really what's going on with the thyroid. But here's kind of a cool thing. When you have a triad and you look at the thyroid, the pancreas, and the adrenal, that's one of them, and the thyroid is not working, it's hypo, for example. You're not producing enough of either T4, and T4 converts to T3. That's the active form of thyroid. Am I getting into science too much
You're
again?
getting a little bit of
I'm
science,
sorry.
but I just want to know, like,
You got to balance out that.
so if let's just say, if you're having stomach issues all the time, you're eating, you're having a problem with, you can't figure it out, you've maybe done the nutrient tests and you've done the tests that tell you whether you're allergic to different foods, and nothing is telling you what's wrong, but you've got something going on, and all they want to do, all the doctors want to do is just tell you you've got IBS, and like, that's it. You just have to live with it.
Yeah.
How do you get to the root problem that and fix it so you don't have to live that way?
Yeah, good question. Of course, that's why you got this show.
Yeah, right.
Good question. What you have to do is you've got to find out what's going on first. So how do you figure that out? Look at the bowel. You look at what is it, distension, bloating. You look at the symptoms. Okay. You also pull up labs. So that's the other part of this. So I take a look at all the labs, which are more the objective way of looking at what's going on with you, more empirical data. And then I pair it up with the physical symptoms that you're having. And I come up with, okay, this is what's going on with you, and this is how we fix it. And treatment involves dietary changes, involves supplements, involves lifestyle changes. Like I mentioned, sleep. Sleep is huge.
Yeah.
Sleep attenuates sugar for the next 24 hours.
So let's talk about sleep for a second, because a lot of people struggle with sleeping soundly and sleeping through the night. And of course, you got people that are prescribed that are told that they have sleep apnea, and then they have to have these big face masks and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then you've got, the people that say, my doctor gave me this. I couldn't live like that. I finally got myself on the right path to eating and health, and I don't do it anymore, and I'm in much better health. So you've got, and even people that say are healthy, like I'll tell you right now, look, I am healthy, and I get my blood tests
you look great.
I look great, but even on the inside, I get blood tests every 3 months, and I take my supplements, and I do this and that, and if I'm low on vitamin D, I take more vitamin D, and all these things, right? But I don't sleep solidly through the night, and I feel myself tossing and turning and waking up and going back to sleep and waking up and going back to sleep. I mean, I wouldn't call that sleep apnea. It's just, my sleep pattern is not solid. I don't sleep like when I was a teenager. You wake up at noon, you're like, where'd half the day go? Right?
Yeah,
right?
I
You're just
remember
like,
that.
the whole night's gone. So, but what causes somebody to not sleep solidly, and how can you really fix that?
Everybody's different. So you may have an issue with cortisol production. So if you wake up, can you fall back asleep right away?
Yes.
You can? That's
Yes.
good. So it may not be cortisol. It may be, other fact could be infection.
What is
Sometimes.
cortisol?
Cortisol is produced by the adrenal glands, and it's a hormone. And what that does is it wakes your body up. There's a cortisol curve. So in the morning when you wake up, you've got normally higher cortisol, and then it curves down. So later on in the day, it's low, and that's when melatonin kicks in and some of these other DHEA. And what happens is you're able to relax. So there's an autonomic nervous system. It operates automatically, if you want to look at autonomic. And what happens is if you're stuck in a parasympathetic side of it versus the sympathetic, or vice versa, there's an imbalance and you have to correct it. Most people, especially the execs, are in that sympathetic. They're going all the time. Cortisol is being produced all the time. If you sleep, cortisol is raised. So cortisol, unfortunately, is catabolic. It breaks down tissue. Parasympathetic is rest and digest. The sympathetic is you're like fighting the white tiger or freezing. It's constantly getting you energy. Basically, it gives you energy. So it helps you wake up. It does a lot of good things. But again, it's that balance. You've got to get the parasympathetic. When you're in parasympathetic, when you rest and digest, you're healing. Your body's immune system starts coming up. But if you're in chronic cortisol, then your body's breaking down this tissue, and it's constantly breaking it down, and you're not repairing it. So these execs come in my facility, and they've been going high-end all the time, and they've got all this damage in their system. So what happens when they start relaxing, going on retirement? Big problem with the immune system, because it kicks in and then it overstimulates. So you've got a lot of inflammation, because how the body heals is it takes the area of damage and it encapsulates it, normally with like omega-6s, those types of oils.
Yep.
And once it's encapsulated, it repairs it. So it sends in the different program basically to get in science again. It programs it just so it starts to heal, okay?
Yeah.
And then the omega-3s come in and clear it out. But if you've got it overinflamed, that's, by the way, what happened with COVID.
Yeah.
What happened with COVID, it was an overstimulating of the immune system's
Sure.
ILS. It was these cytokines, chemokines, and what they do is they're signaling agents for the immune system. And when it's overstimulated like that, you can't get oxygenated. Your body can't oxygenate the tissues. So that's why they put them on respirators. It didn't work.
Right.
Because you're putting oxygen in the lungs. And one of my residents went in 20 liters of oxygen, nothing. They couldn't get them oxygenated because if you take the oxygen in the system, it's extremely low. And he ended up, like a lot of them, passed from hypo states of oxygen. So because of that...
So you had too much oxygen?
No, hypo, low.
Oh.
It's low.
Got it.
So hypoxia, they call it, hypoxic
Okay.
conditions. So that's what was going on with COVID.
So if somebody has high cortisol, how do they lower that?
Well, sleep is big, okay?
But if you're having a problem sleeping, it's kind of a catch-22 there, right?
Yeah, you got to get on that. And I do a lot of things in my facility trying to figure that out.
Okay.
There's one lady that I just couldn't fix because her son kept coming in and bringing her cookies and sweets and carbs. And again, that stimulates the body to produce more cortisol. It's this sugar, and they get these spikes and drop-offs, and they've got all kinds of problems.
Okay.
A better diet for someone like that is called the ketogenic diet.
Yeah.
So it's more fats, good fats, protein,
Yep.
and a lot of vegetables. So you get your minerals from where?
Although the keto diet, or I guess maybe it's a carnivore diet, you don't even have vegetables, but keto you do?
Yeah, carnivore diets is just straight
Straight
meats.
meat.
But
dairy.
keto, you have vegetables.
Got it.
Yeah, with the good fats. And where do you get your minerals? Get them from vegetables and fruits. Unless you take them internally, and they've got different ways of giving you minerals. Because, for example, if you take magnesium, normally you don't take just straight elemental magnesium. We can't live on dirt. Some people believe they can, but you can't.
Okay.
That's why you go to plants. Plants take the dirt, basically, the minerals in it, and they metabolize it so that when you eat the plant, your body recognizes the minerals. That's why they have magnesium glycinate, malate, taurate, all these different types of elements that they put, the elements they put, these amino acids in addition to
So that you can metabolize them.
So you can break them down,
Yep.
so your body can utilize them.
Yeah.
So the body will recognize it.
So let's talk about, supplements for a second. Is it worth spending your money on supplements, or can you just get the same benefit out of eating the right foods?
My advice for someone selling their home: number 1, do it yourself and save. Number 2, use HomePie.
HomePie makes it easy to buy or sell without an agent. I can list a home in minutes and start receiving offers right away from buyers.
When we discovered that we didn't have to lose $40,000 in agent commission just to upsize to a larger home, it was an obvious choice.
List your home for free at homepie.com. Keep your piece of the pie.
Is it worth spending your money on supplements, or can you just get the same benefit out of eating the right foods?
Foods are, to me, the key. You need to get the proper foods. Unfortunately, our diet with just food is inadequate because we eat foods that, plants, for example, from the soil, we don't get the minerals. You don't get the probiotics anymore. It's the same with meats. If they feed them grain, you don't get the grass-fed meat much better because you get the better fats. So you can't really depend on food entirely. There are certain foods that are better than others that have more nutrients. You want more nutrient-dense foods. But how many people eat sardines?
Yeah.
I do.
Oh, you do?
Occasionally,
man.
yeah. And I got used to the taste. It's good.
It's hard to get close to people when you're eating those things.
Yeah. You just
comes out the pores.
chew some xylitol gum or something like that, or take
that'll
a
neutralize it?
peppermint yeah, sometimes
Okay.
it does.
That's interesting.
And what's interesting too is even with garlic, if you're eating enough of it, your body cleans out, and when you eat garlic, then you're not going to have it in your breath anymore.
Ah. Okay, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
So if you eat garlic or sardines or something that makes you stink, your breath, your pores, what can you have to neutralize that?
Well, again, if you start eating it and your body's cleaning out, then you're not going to, it's not like if you're eating it and you're not clean, because that's when you start smelling. But if you eat it all the time, your body metabolizes it really well, and you don't have the odor. But then you can disguise it with breath mints, peppermint, spearmint, those type of things. Xylitol gum's really good because it helps the teeth too, because it doesn't. It's not like a sugar that will damage your teeth.
I have a question for you with this. So, why is it when you have garlic and you're with your spouse or whatever, they're like, oh man, the garlic or whatever.
Yeah.
But if they have garlic and you have garlic, you don't smell it.
You don't smell it, yeah.
Why?
Because you got the same stuff going on, you smell the same stuff, and so it's not as apparent.
Isn't that interesting? Have you ever noticed that? No? Or onions.
Yeah, onions too.
Like if you have onions, people will be like, oh, your onion breath. But if they have the onions too, they don't smell it.
They're cool.
Yeah. I think the same thing's for alcohol. If you're drinking alcohol, and they'll be like, what do you have? But if they have it too, they don't smell it.
Yeah, because you're more sensitive
Isn't
to the
that
smell
interesting?
then. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I've always thought about how interesting that is.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think there's a connection between how we eat and cancer and obesity?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
What is it?
Well, cancer lives off of sugar. I mean, it's basic,
Period.
right? That's easy. So if you've got cancer, you got to cut out not just sugar, but you cut out carbs. Carbs act sometimes worse than sugars, and certain carbs more. It injects the body, the circulatory system, with glycation, and you get these glycated end products called AGEs. And what happens is there's a hypoxic condition that develops, and there's a condition where the cell actually shuts down when it comes down to using oxygen for fuel, and it turns just into using glucose. It no longer uses fat, it uses total glucose. And it does this to preserve itself and to live forever. When that happens, you're very prone to cancers because that's how they grow.
So sugar and carbs are the root to cancer.
I would say,
and obesity.
I would say if you're going to call a root anything root, because again, you've got toxicity. There's issues with your metabolism that you've got to look at. But as far as dietary wise, if you cut out the sugars and the carbs for a while, watch the difference.
Yeah.
And you eat fats. Now, here's the thing, though. If by chance you cut it out and you're sluggish, you're lethargic, you bloat, you've got issues, then you're not breaking down your food. So you got to fix that gut.
Okay.
So how do you do that? You can
how
help
do you
out.
do that?
Yeah. A lot of times people will develop what's called GERD.
Okay.
Okay. Gastroencephalogical reflux disease. And what happens is when you eat, the food gets into the stomach, and you don't produce enough hydrochloric acid. So there's a sphincter valve that opens up if you have enough acid in your stomach. Once you have enough acid, it opens and the chyme goes through and metabolizes.
Okay.
If by chance you don't have enough hydrochloric acid, it comes up. It goes back through the sphincter here, and it gets up and it causes all kinds of issues.
What about when it's there, but it doesn't come up through the throat, but it causes like gas and gurgling and gases instead of coming up through the throat?
Yeah, usually you don't get gas in the stomach, you get it in the intestinal tract.
Okay.
And that's because you've got some dysbiosis going on. So your bad bacteria or your bad flora is feeding off of that food and creating gas.
So would you treat that with some sort of probiotic?
Probiotic is excellent.
Yeah.
To get that started.
But there's all different types of probiotic, right?
Right.
So you got to find the right one.
Yeah, and the way I do it is I switch them off sometimes. You can take tests so you can find out. The fecal matter test will tell you a lot, and you can see what's going on as far as the balance, if you have a dysbiosis, where it is. Some people have an overgrowth of yeast or fungus. That causes a lot of it, especially if they eat carbs.
Okay.
If you eat carbs, a lot of times, if the fungus feeds off of that and creates that gas.
Yeah.
And the bloating.
So going back to, do you think supplements are worth spending your money on?
Well, yeah, but you have to get the right ones. What's difficult now is once you go on, you can go online and find out all these different great supplements, and everybody's got an angle as to this is going to work. But you really need to have individualized, I think, consultation. You can get general ideas of what's going on with your health, but if you're having issues, you need someone to sit down with you and say, okay, I know you say you eat great. I talk to people all the time. I've got a great diet, right? What do you eat? I eat all vegetables. Okay, well, how about protein? Are you getting any protein? Well, yeah, I get some. Okay, well, let's talk about that. What about fats? I do a test for omega-6 to omega-3 ratios, and I see what the balance is. And you shouldn't have any more than 3-to-1 ratio. Some people are 15 average, 15-to-1, and some, like I've got a friend, he's 45-to-1. It's horrible. So you've got all this inflammation going on, and you need to correct that. So how do you do that? There's a product out. It's from a company, Zenzino. They've got all kinds of omega-3s that they market. Zenzino adds something that most of them don't, and those are the polyphenols. Because when you eat fish, then you get the polyphenols with it. If you extract the oil from the fish, they have to extract all of the different toxins with it too. And when they do, they take out the polyphenols. So you're getting the omega-3 tablets, but you're not getting the polyphenols. So you have to make sure you get enough of them because they work really well together. And it works on the cell membrane so that the cell membrane is able to receive information and it's not hardened. The trouble with other fats, bad fats, is that membrane is hardened. And so when the insulin feeds it, that's how insulin works, it feeds it. It can't feed it because the receptors aren't working right and it's encrusted. So once it's working properly, insulin feeds it, and you don't have the insulin resistance. It's not resisting the insulin.
Got it.
By the way, that leads to diabetes and
all
kinds of heart disease after that.
Is there a daily supplement or vitamin that you recommend people take?
Any one in particular, you mean?
Like a multivitamin?
Yeah,
or...
there's some multivitamins, some better than others. I know Life Extension has a real good one. Orthomolecular is great. Integrative.
So, like, for example, I take daily, a pack of vitamins. It's called the Animal Pack, PAK.
It turns you into an animal?
I think it might. I take some omega-3. I take that in the morning, and I take it at night. Add some vitamin C to that. I take some Cartitone at night. I take some vitamin D during the day.
Carnitine, did you say at night?
Cartitone? Cartitone.
That's a new one. So maybe it's a certain type of...
Yeah, it's for heart health.
Okay. So maybe carnitine and some other...
And probably a few others I'm not thinking about right now. But I do it daily.
Yeah.
I've been doing that consistently for 5.5 years.
And it's working great.
It feels like it does, but I'm just curious if I'm wasting money on some of that.
Well, you could test just to see how you're doing.
Well, I do blood tests every 3 months. And
what kind of...
everything's in good shape. I mean, I have a doctor look at it and they review it. And, I know about a year ago, they said you're a little low on vitamin D. I want you to add some vitamin D.
3?
What is it? D3 something.
Make sure you take K2 with it.
With K2. That's what it was.
Also enough magnesium and zinc because they all work together.
Okay. I don't think that was part of it. But but then it tested fine after that.
Yeah.
And so, he monitors it. But again, like, I don't know if some of that would exist even without me taking the vitamins. Like vitamins are expensive.
They're expensive.
Yeah. And it's actually a lot of work to have them.
What's more expensive?
No,
sickness?
Sure, but but a lot of people say that sometimes it's a waste of money. Right? Like, it's not really doing anything. Those are a waste.
Yeah. So how can you do it without testing, right? It's a lot of it's symptoms. Again, with the questionnaire, I can take a look at it and pretty much see what's going on with you.
Okay.
Generally speaking.
Gotcha.
Put you on a diet program that's going to optimize your health.
How do you read labels effectively? Food labels.
Well, you have to read everything in it. The way they set them up.
It's so hard to understand them because there's a lot, ingredients you don't recognize.
Then don't.
And then something
don't
will
eat
say,
it.
well, that's in almost anything.
Yeah.
Of course, you could say avoid packaged food.
Yeah.
But that's hard to do in perpetuity.
Anything processed you're going to have some issues with it. Okay, basically. But if you're looking at like cereals and that type of thing, unless again if it's processed food, you're going to have some issue where the body's not going to be able to recognize it and utilize it properly. So meats,
for example, like people think that if they read a label and it says 0 sugar or there's 1 or 2 grams of sugar per serving or something and it's very low, then that means that there's no sugar. But that doesn't mean that something else in that label doesn't metabolize as sugar, right?
Right. And what's really big is people. don't understand, I think, the importance of not eating foods with seed oils.
So seed oils.
Those are probably worse than sugar.
Why?
Because they don't break down in your system. I mean, like canola oil. In Europe, they don't sell it. It's machine oil, okay? Your body can't utilize it. And it turns out to be more of a toxic effect in your body.
So
and remember,
the root of canola oil is corn, is it not?
But it's processed.
It's processed.
Highly processed.
But corn's not easy to digest either.
It's not.
If you eat corn, an ear of corn, a third of that comes out through the rectum, right? Because you're not really digesting it.
Right.
You know, you'll
and
see
a
the
lot
corn
of people
there.
have allergies when it comes to corn too, or food sensitivities.
Okay.
There's a difference. Food sensitivity is within 72 hours you get a reaction, and an allergy is immediately you get an reaction. So a lot of people won't get an immediate one, but within 72 hours, they have issues.
Would that show up on a food sensitivity test?
It would.
It would. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Interesting.
There are GI mapping tests that are great.
But are there some simple things when you're reading a label that will help you when you're trying to determine if something has sugar or will metabolize as sugar?
Yeah, as far as sugars, I mean, even that you get mixed up because maltodextrin seems like, oh, that's a nice thing. No, it's worse than sugar.
Okay.
So there are certain ingredients that they put in. I don't know if it's to save money or what, or it processes, or it gives it more shelf life. That's another thing. That's a problem. And like, for example, milk. I remember when I was growing up, we had milk delivered every day. And it came in a milk chute, and you drink it, usually within a day or two. I remember my granddad had milk, and he put a silver dollar in it because of the colloidal silver, and it made it last longer. But then you had all the elements in it. You had lactase, as well as to break down the lactose. You have colloidal minerals. I mean, everything worked. And very few people had issues with milk intolerance, with lactose intolerance. So now we keep the milk on the shelf for how long? Weeks. So your body, again, is having difficulty breaking that down.
Because something's in there preserving it.
Yeah.
So is there a milk product on the market that doesn't have those preservatives?
Well, again, it's not as much preservatives as the way it's processed milk, because you've got pasteurization and homogenization.
Okay.
Homogenization. And those really devoid the milk of some of the quality that raw milk has as far as being broken down.
So if you want to drink milk, is there a milk product out there that you'd recommend?
Well, best would be some that's fermented, like yogurt, kefir, because it's got more of the broken down, it's got acidophilus, it's got some bifidus in it, and it helps the body break it down.
So could you put that in your coffee?
Nah, doesn't taste. It's sour. It'll sour it.
Okay.
So coffee, you probably best to do Natalie loves coffee, my wife. So looking at something that's got, they say it's lactose free, which it's not lactose free. That's just that they put lactase in it, so it helps to break it down. So maybe a creamer like that would be beneficial for you. Okay, you could substitute it with coconut milk. There are substitutions you can use too if you want it creamy like that.
But to go back to the days when you had milk delivered, right?
Yeah.
And you drank it within a couple of days. Is there a milk on the market that is
No,
like that?
Unfortunately, it's illegal.
Oh.
They've made it illegal.
Interesting. Why?
At least in California. Well, because of the fact that they said bacteria gets into the milk, and they want to make sure it's clear of the bacteria.
So they add all these chemicals, and then chemicals have issues with the bodies, and the bodies get obese,
yeah, and again,
that's better for people?
It's not the chemicals as much as homogenizing it. They heat it up so high, so it kills any bad bacteria.
Okay.
Right? And then they homogenize, they whip it together so the fats get mixed in together, so the cream doesn't come to the top. But what happens is when you do something like that, again, you get the body so it can't break it down. But here's the problem. You get a cow delivering raw milk, and it's a healthy cow. You have no problems. You get a cow that's sick, and you're going to have problems because the bacteria will get into the milk. So instead of really going after the farms that are producing raw milk, like they did at one time, and holding them to higher standards, they just say, across the board, we're going to pasteurize everything.
Got it. Yeah.
So
it's funny because I saw a video
I
saw a video recently, and it was a video of the streets of New York. And of course, this is an old video, so it was black and white. They colored it, but everybody was dressed nicely. You know,
Yeah.
guys were in suits and ladies were in dresses. But the more significant part about this is they compared it to today. And of course, nobody's dressed up today, but that was superficially what they were showing. It's like the people who were dressed up before, not dressed up today, dressed like slobs. But then the real point of the difference in the video was everybody was skinny.
Thin, right.
And thin and healthy.
Yeah.
And today they were all obese.
Right.
And unhealthy.
Obesity is
so
huge.
So what's
problem.
happened
It's a huge
in the
problem.
last 50 years?
Well, I mean, what do you think? Our diet.
It's
Our diet's
food.
horrible. I know we've got a lot of stress now that we probably didn't have. But diet is huge. You know, they've got, even in the schools, I've got a daughter at 13, and it's a challenge because she goes off with her girlfriends and they eat junk. And they go, here, come on, Angelina, it's not going to. So she gained weight. And I'm thinking, okay. And she's a dancer. So she was she looked a little heavier on stage, you know. And I love my daughter, too. She's just, her name's Angelina, she's my little angel. Yeah. And what happened, though, is I started figuring, how can I get her to eat the good foods, but what's at the root cause of it, and how can I figure out how I can get her to lose some weight? And what I came up with was a solution that seems to, well, it's worked. She's lost weight. One is boys. Okay, so if the boys start looking at her, she's going, okay, I'm skipping lunch.
Yeah.
That's a big remedy, okay? But also, when I give her orange juice, I put the fiber in with the orange juice. Because what happens is if you drink these sweet juices and you don't have the fiber, then it just goes right into your system. And that causes that, talking about that triad, causes the cortisol increase, it causes the sugar to raise up in your system, insulin's raised, and then when the body's got a lot of sugar like that, it turns it into fat. So you've a certain amount of fat cells. You don't really create or any more fat cells than you have. But when the body starts throwing it into the fat cells, that's when you start to get bigger.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because if you eat an orange, you've got what? Fiber. So you're getting about flavonoids, you're getting fiber if you eat an orange. But if she drinks the orange juice, she's only getting the sugars.
Yeah.
So I put the stuff in it.
And this is psyllium fiber.
It's actually guar gum.
Oh, what's the difference between psyllium fiber and guar gum?
It's just psyllium is from the psyllium seed. Guar gum is a different form of fiber. There's soluble and insoluble fiber. Yeah. I know orthomolecular makes a really good fiber blend. So you get both of it, and you've got the ability for your body to utilize that. Makes you a regular guy, you know.
So what's the difference between those three types of fiber then?
Well, basically two, soluble and insoluble types of fiber. So some, it blends right into your drink. You know, you don't, it doesn't
coagulate,
absorb it. Yeah, and it goes through your system. So a lot easier than the soluble. Soluble goes in and it actually gets into the system a little deeper, if you want to think of it that way.
So I've always been told that having the psyllium fiber where it coagulates, you got to drink it quickly, otherwise it becomes a solid matter, is better because it helps to clean out your system that better. It's almost like a rotor-rooter going through and pushing everything out.
Well, psyllium is good for certain people. Those that have bowel distress or that have their peristaltic motions not working that well in the bowel, they get backed up, and sometimes for days.
Got it.
I've seen them in my facility. They come in, and that's where you get a lot of the bloating
Interesting.
too, because it's the colon. The colon should be set up so it looks really nice in the pictures, right?
So you would have a soluble fiber recommendation for them.
That I would, or both. I would use both, but because the insoluble too absorbs the water, and you want hydration in your colon, and it keeps it soft. So that's a good thing. But if you're having issues with the peristaltic motion, then you need a little help, a little push. And you know what's really great for that? Natural magnesium in the form of magnesium citrate. Citrate will stimulate the bowel.
Okay. Interesting.
So you're getting magnesium, which is good. Your body, most people, by the way, are deficient in magnesium. So it's a good way of getting that at the same time you get the citrate.
So if a patient comes to you and they're tired, they're bloated, they're anxious, they're gaining weight, what's your first move? And what's the one thing you tell them not to do? Are you a tech investor looking to shape the future of real estate? HomePie is the #1 for sale by owner marketplace, and we are revolutionizing the way homes are bought and sold. I'd love to hear from you. Just email invest@homepie.com and let's chat. Now back to the show.
So the first move would be take an assessment. I listen. What's going on with you? And the best way I can do that is by having them answer that questionnaire. When it comes back to me, I review the questions, I review the answers that they give, because sometimes they're a little bit off. Well, I didn't mean this. Okay. So we put that together, and then I look at I have them do labs. Some people I don't do labs. Some people don't require them. But they're good biomarkers, so at least you know where you're starting. So when you put them together, and I put them together in a report, I analyze what's going on with them, and then I'm able to figure out what to work on first, because you can't work on everything all at once. So I work on the most important one. I said, let's fix the thyroid, pancreas, and the adrenal. Let's work on that. So here are the supplements for that. Here's the diet for that. And then let's look at how everything starts working with you, and then take it from there.
Okay.
That's where you start, because most people say, well, I've got this issue. What can you give me, or what would you recommend? And I can do that basically. I mean, there are certain things like vitamin D. Vitamin D is amazing. The body uses it. It's free if you get out in the sun.
Sure.
So 20 minutes in the sun, you get 10,000 IUs of vitamin D. 40 minutes, 40 minutes, you get about 20, okay? So if you're out in the sun, you get it free. It really works. You get some of the minerals into it. But not a lot of people are out in the sun now. Yeah. I can't be. I'm always on the run. So I take a supplement, and that's when I take the D3. Make sure it's D3. With K2, because K2 will pull out the calcium. And also, I don't understand who came up with the analysis where, you need X amount of vitamin D, and if you get too much, it's toxic. Because everything I've read so far, and I do a lot of research, is the toxicity of vitamin D is you have too much calcium in the blood. That causes kidney stones, causes other issues, okay? So if you take K2, it pulls it out. I had a lady in my facility. She took 50,000 IUs of vitamin D every day. She had issues with her shoulder. She's got, it's called particular shedding disease. She's got a lot of stuff going on because of that, with a lot of toxicity. And caused high blood pressure, high sugar levels. She's got diabetes, and she was a mess. And what's interesting is we upped her vitamin D. She's the one that suggested it. She says, I want to take more. Okay. So 50,000, I go, we got to monitor this. Let's do the testing, because I'm looking at everything and hearing everything going, we want to make sure that you don't have too much and cause toxic effects. So she took it for 10 months, 50,000 units. After that, pain mitigated. It really helped her with her pain. Her blood pressure was lower. Her sugar was lower. And so I'm thinking, could it be the vitamin D? Could be alone, but we did other things with her too, okay? But that was a big thing. So like you say, if there's one thing that I could recommend, it would be, one of the things would be vitamin D, because it does so many things, turns on so many enzymes, works in so many chemical reactions in the body.
And is there something you'd recommend they not do?
That they don't do?
That they shouldn't do. They come to you, they've got the bloating, but would you say this is something you shouldn't do while we figure this out?
Yeah, well, I would look at the diet and see what's going on there. That would be big. And then if they're not sleeping, I really work at that. And I do it by more natural means. What I find is interesting is, drugs rob the body of something to make it work. So if by chance they're on certain medications, I look at them. It means they're deficient, and I've got a chart in all these different types of things. One of the big things of a beta blocker you'll be deficient in is melatonin. So you take the beta blocker, 2 weeks, 3 weeks later, you've got an issue because you can't sleep. So what do? Give you Ambien, which is a modified benzo. And then Ambien also robs the body of melatonin. So you'll sleep but not get into a deep sleep. So they're never really rested. And I'm looking at the elderly, okay, but it affects the same things with all of us. And so when that happens, they get agitated. They call it sundowner syndrome later in the day.
Yeah.
So that's, you look for things like that first, and then once you kind of tweak the diet, and sometimes it's challenging with the elderly because they don't want to do it. They want whatever it is. I like my ice cream. I like my, fill in the blank. And so I think, how can I get them to start eating the good stuff? So I came up with this different shakes. And I say, do you like chocolate? Well, most of them like chocolate. I got this great, rich, chocolatey shake. I had one lady that came to the facility. She was 55. She was young. Ran marathons. Every year she ran about 3, 4, 5 marathons. Depleted her system of all the nutrients because it's grueling.
Taxing.
Those things. And what happened was she just ate carbs because her daughter says all she ate was carbs. What did she develop? Frontal lobe, left lobe dementia. Okay, really severe.
Wow.
She was in our facility on high doses of psychotropic medications. They said you've got to test her liver every week because the medications are going to kill her. This is a 55-year-old.
Yeah, yeah.
She looked good. But the two things that she would eat, chocolate and drink orange juice. That's it. So I went, oh, okay, how am I going to do this? So I thought, okay, put everything in the chocolate shake that I possibly could as far as the nutrients go.
Right.
And the chocolate shake is the broken down protein, so it's an amino acid. So her body would start absorbing these things. And then get the fish oils and everything like that in the orange juice.
Okay.
So in about 3 weeks, 2-3 weeks, she started showing improvement and started reducing her psychotropics. Into the 4th week, 5th week, she started going through the DTs, getting through them, to eventually she was off of them completely.
Huh.
So major difference in when she first came in. And she was doing really well for a while. But the brain is a difficult thing because, and that's what I've done more study on too, because once something is set up with the brain cells, it's called cell signal transduction. So it's this communication between the nucleus and the mitochondria, and it keeps going all the time. Once the insult of injury is out, they could have TBI or they could have PTSD.
Yeah.
There's an insult basically to the
It's like an imprint and it stays there.
It doesn't stop.
Yeah.
No matter, so it's gone, but everything still
Right.
keeps signaling.
You can't bring it back completely.
Unless you do things to intervene. And what's cool, peptides sometimes act like drones. So they get intracell and they stop that signaling. Same thing with herbs or food, because it works on the external signaling and it gets the inside to change.
So let's talk about peptides. So peptides are the ultimate buzzword today.
Yeah.
But what are they and what type should people be taking?
Well, again, everybody's different, okay? There are some general ones that are excellent.
What are they?
One's called BPC 157. So it's body protective compound 157. You can take it. It's made from the human gastric juices. It's a pentadecapeptide. And so what it does is it helps to normalize everything in the body. You can have issues with, for example, an injury, and if you inject the peptide into the injured area, what it does is it helps to the cells that go in the stem cells by proliferating more of the satellite cells, and it helps with the differentiation of them, so they differentiate, and it helps healing. It helps the healing a lot quicker.
Yeah, because I know a lot of bodybuilders, they'll take, and I don't know what they are, but whatever peptides are recommended so that they can recover quicker.
Mm-hmm.
Are you familiar with those?
Sure. Yeah, they used to combine ipamorelin and CJC 1295, but so you've got the GHRH and the GHRP, the growth hormone releasing peptide and the growth hormone releasing hormone. And if you use them and reduce the somatostatin in the cell, it really helps the body produce the growth hormone. So instead of taking an exogenous hormone and injecting it in your system, is it effective? Yeah. But whenever I find is you're dependent on those. The same thing with a lot of types of treatments. If you just take the hormone or whatever, you're getting the benefit from it for a while, but you're not fixing the problem. And as we age, we want to get that problem fixed so we continue to live a lifestyle instead of going to the doctor all the time to get IV treatments and that type. And it's very expensive too.
Yeah.
So I always look at how can I reestablish the body's ability to produce the hormones in a balanced or homeostatic way so that you can have consistent energy all day long, you can build muscle, you can sleep well, you get all the things of life that we enjoy, you're able to do without having to go and get treatments.
But honestly, as you get older, the body stops producing some of these things. That's just the natural way that we age.
So you can get the body, though, by stimulating the body's way of doing it, you can actually get the body to produce more of it.
You can get it to elevate, eating certain foods, doing certain things, taking certain supplements, but not nearly to the amount
that when you're
of
younger.
Taking these, synthetic, I don't know how to describe them, injections like HGH, TRT, that sort of thing.
Yeah. But again, there's side effects of it, and how much do you take, and when do you take it? And I've seen people, raise their testosterone with just certain supplementation.
Yeah.
Like
so look, there's a lot of hype around HGH. Would you consider that to be the fountain of youth, or is that a slippery slope?
Fountain of youth. I've been doing this aging thing for a while, and I'm 72. I'll be 72 this year. So, I want to make sure that I've got the energy. My wife's a little younger than I am, and I've got a 13-year-old. So I want to be around for a while, and enjoy life. I work pretty hard all my life, and so I'm looking for the time when I can relax a little bit.
Yeah.
Although I love my work, and I love this type of work, I'm fascinated by the body, how it gets things done, basically, once you get to the underlying cause. So yeah, everybody slows down. I look at the 100-year-old. We've got a lady that's going to be turning 100 in our facility, and she's still cooking. She's still got her brain. So why is she still going and able to walk around and doing everything? And then someone else that's maybe in their 60s or 70s, I see people my own age that end up in a facility because they have Parkinson's, they've got other issues that are debilitating. They're just debilitating, and they can't function anymore. So why is that? And that's what my study is. And when I look at their history, I see a lot of things that lead up to it. It's not like, now some of it's genetics, but then again, we talked about genomics. So how did they take care of themselves? What did they do? Did they work in an environment where there were a lot of toxins?
Are you treating anybody that is on, any supplemental therapy? Are you treating anybody that is on any therapy for HGH or TRT?
I'm not.
Okay.
I'm not.
And you're 72. You look great.
Thanks.
And you're in great shape.
Doing okay.
What do you do for supplements?
Normally, first of all, diet's big. Okay, so I make sure that I've got enough protein, fats, good fats, and I eat as many vegetables as I can. Take supplementation as far as minerals, especially magnesium. It's a big one. Zinc is big because the body doesn't really store zinc. And what's interesting about zinc, I just found this out not too long ago, is if you take, for example, 50 milligrams of zinc, you go, oh, wow, recommend daily allowance is only 10 or 12. Well, it's not all the elemental zinc that you're taking. It's zinc gluconate or zinc glycinate or whatever it is. And you've got the glycine attached to the zinc. So out of the zinc that you're taking, 50 milligrams, you may be getting only about 12 or 15 at the most. And you can take up to 40, so that means you can take quite a bit of zinc. And you talk about testosterone, zinc really helps with the testosterone. And it works
So you take a lot of zinc?
I take about 50 milligrams in the morning, zinc carnosine.
Okay.
So that, and along with another zinc picolinate sometimes. I take a supplement that's got Campora. It's got some good herbs, tribulus, that help promote testosterone.
Okay.
It's got zinc in that too. So I might get roughly 15, maybe 20 milligrams of zinc a day, elemental. And I feel better on that.
So what are your testosterone levels at today?
I don't know. I don't test myself.
You don't test yourself?
No, my wife
John,
goes,
you got to test yourself.
I don't need it.
People want to know.
I know.
What's your T level?
I don't know.
Okay.
I really don't know.
I took zinc as a kid. Well, I didn't
Did
take
you?
it. But I did wear it.
I know.
Sunscreen.
Zinc oxide.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's the best. Oh, bring up sunscreen. Do you know when people started having issues with skin cancers and a lot more cancers?
After sunscreen?
After sunscreen came out in 76.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, started going up.
Yeah.
Why? Because the body can't produce, because it's not getting enough of the UVB rays.
Yeah, I think about that. I think about sunscreen, and I think that there's some element to this idea that when you're taking something to protect you, you do more of it because you feel you're protected. So, sunscreen? Just stay in the sun a lot longer because I'm not going to burn.
Yeah.
And so it may not be as much as the sunscreen causing the damage as it is You're just in the sun longer because you're wearing it. For example, football helmets. More head injuries, the better the football helmet got.
Yeah.
Back in the 40s, 50s, they just had those leather helmets. There weren't as many head injuries back then because people weren't using their head, leading with their head because it would hurt.
Uh-huh.
And so now they've got these big helmets and it doesn't hurt as much. They lead with the head and it causes more injuries. So that's my theory anyway. I don't know if I'm right or right.
Interesting. Okay.
Am I right?
That's a good theory.
No opinion on that
think
one?
that through.
All right. So let's talk about testosterone. So testosterone therapy has exploded. What are the real risks of taking TRT?
It causes an imbalance sometimes because you want to balance out your hormones. Well, you've heard of steroids, and you see people on too many steroids. So if you're balancing out your hormones and you're getting testosterone and you make sure that everything else is working fine and it's in balance, great. But you've got to really check yourself often. So
I think this has become an epidemic because, if somebody you're getting older and your testosterone levels are getting lower and you go and you get tested, and let's say that you measure out at 100 or 200 or something like this, it's really low. And you're tired and you're just not energetic and you go to the gym and you're just not motivated because you're not seeing any gains. A lot of that's because your testosterone is really low. You're just not producing it anymore. And yes, you can eat some certain foods and increase a little bit, but how far can you really take that versus going and get the supplemental therapy, but having it monitored? So having a doctor monitor it instead of all these online ordering places where it's just, they've got these licenses to issue the TRT, but they don't really monitor anything and they're just shipping it out and they don't measure it. And some people will belong to more than one. And so they're getting double the amount and they're self-treating themselves. And it's a problem. It's become an epidemic because I see it happening with youth. I see it happening with people in their 20s or early 20s, mid 20s, and they're just taking this just to keep up with everybody else. We're in this gym generation again. Like it's we're going back to the 80s where gym became a big thing and we had Arnold Schwarzenegger and all these movies with the big muscle guys and you got the Hulk and all that.
Yeah.
And so now the youth is into this again and it's online, it's in social feeds, it's on TikTok, and everybody wants to get bigger. And so the younger and younger they are because it's so accessible. Not like steroids back in the day. You'd have to buy it, from a dealer essentially. It's like a drug dealer. You have to get your testosterone and it's not like that anymore. And so these guys, I think, are at risk because they're not being monitored by doctors. They're not getting their blood tests all the time. And it could cause problems. What are the problems it can cause?
Yeah, again, it's an imbalance of the hormones.
But a heart problem, like what could it cause?
Yeah, the body. If the body's out of balance, then everybody would be different. So building muscle, again, it has to do with the total approach. If you do the total approach, you're going to have. I'm 72. I'm still here. You start if you take any one thing, say this is the answer, and it will sustain you for a while. But then, what about long term? You got to look at long term effects, because even Schwarzenegger. If you look at him, because of the stuff that he took, he's got health issues.
What are his health issues?
Well, they're not going to probably disclose a lot of them, but when you look at him, he used to be pumped. It's that all the muscle, being in California, you have to be pumped up, otherwise what are you going to do when the girls see you on the beach? That's important, right? So, you gotta look at it as the total picture. And even Schwarzenegger, when he spoke at the American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine, he said, you don't go to the people who are in charge. Don't go to the leaders because they're not going to help you. You have to go to the people. It's the root cause. You have the basis of the people that are going to change everything for the diet and get everybody back to where they should be. So even he knows now how important it is to eat right, take care of yourself, and everything being in balance. If you pump up more, if you increase your testosterone, you're going to increase muscle mass. But then again, at what expense? So again, short term, you probably won't experience issues. Long term, it's going to cause, it could be heart problems, it could be cardiovascular, it could be sugar issues, because if you're pumping out all this testosterone, it's going to raise cortisol levels. raise sugar levels, and you may have those issues because that's what normally happens.
And how do you measure cortisol?
You can do it 5-point cortisol. In the morning, you take a little, it's saliva. You can do a saliva test. They do have blood test. Saliva test is probably one of the best ways because you do it throughout the day, and you can see the curve.
So you can order a cortisol test online and.
Yeah, do they have them online? I mean, I get them from some professional.
And so you take the saliva and you put it on some sort of a paper or something?
No, it's a spit test.
Okay.
You spit it in.
And then how does it there's something already in the tube?
The tube.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So you do that, and then you get 4 or 5 times. It's usually 5 point. And then it tells you basically what's going on during the day. And some people are down here. Some people.
So what would be a lower and what would be a high cortisol level?
I mean, like anywhere from 12 to 15, maybe in the morning, because that's when you want it to be higher. And then later on in the day, you get down to 3, 4, especially before sleep.
So what are dangerous levels then of cortisol?
Well, if you get more closer to 20 in the morning, something's a little too high. And then, see, it's the sustainability of it, because some people the curve is really high. But here's the thing. It's not necessarily the adrenal gland. It's the signaling from the brain. So there's this axis. They call it the HPA axis, the hypothalamus to the pituitary to the adrenal. And you want to work with that signaling. When I was in the car a lot, and I'm driving back and forth, and I'm handling issues, and I multitask. And my stress level was really high. Stress causes it too. It's just, having all kinds of issues you're dealing with causes the production of cortisol. So you have to tone that down. How do you do it? What I did was there's a great blend of a couple herbs, magnolia root and philodendron, and it's called Relora. So I took that with theanine. Theanine's from green tea. It's an amino acid. And I started taking that a few times a day. And theanine, I could dip you in it like a flea dip, and you're not going to have any side effects. So you can take a lot of it. So as I'm going through stress periods, I would take it. And what's interesting is I found I calmed down. And I didn't have that stress feeling. That stress feeling like you're overwhelmed, you got so much to do and you can't do it. It just calmed everything down. And I realized at the end of the day, I still got everything done without that feeling of stress.
Huh.
So what I did was I said, okay, so God lucked out again. He made everything good at the end of the day. So John, don't get so stressed out when things happen. Take it one step at a time and just deal with it, okay?
But that concoction you made helped you with that.
That helped me feel that way, okay? So I felt what it was like. It was almost like a vacation for me.
Okay.
Because I haven't gone on vacation in 6 years. I'm always doing stuff. But this was like a vacation because I didn't feel stressed out. And when I got to that feeling, I said, okay, then I started intellectualizing, using my brain, going, what can I do so I don't have to take this stuff to keep it down? So what I did was I experimented and I stopped taking it. I reduced it, stopped taking it. And then as soon as I felt the trigger going, because you can feel it when you're starting to get stressed, I went, I'm not going there. I'm not going there. And I would change my focus. Once I changed it, I could cope with it without that feeling.
Yeah.
So now I don't need the physiological help because now I do it more mentally.
You've trained yourself.
Trained myself.
Yeah.
But it took that to make me understand because I was comfortable in stress.
Yeah.
You get used to it and say, if I'm not
becomes
stressed
part of
out,
your life.
I'm not going to get anything done.
That's right. So NAD is being called the cellular reset molecule. What does it actually do? And should the average person be considering NAD therapy?
Well, NAD is produced by the body. What you want to do is stimulate the body again to produce it. So how do you do that? Niacin. It's from niacin, really. And there's a chain, basically, that it produces it in the body. You can take supplements like nicotinamide riboside, NR. That will help to stimulate more production of it. And what happens is when you get more of the NAD in your system, it works on the genetically. So there's the genomics again, and it will make the telomeres a little bit longer. So it helps aging-wise. You may not experience it. It helps energy-wise, but that's basically how it works.
Do you take any NADs?
You know, I have some on my shelf, and I don't really take it a lot. Very rarely do I. The only time I take it is when I think, gee, maybe I need some NAD.
Okay.
But it's the NR, nicotinamide riboside. And I know because it produces it. So I do things, again, just based on my understanding of how the body works. I make sure I get the right nutrients. I do take some herbs. I take more CoQ10. I take more vitamin D. And I take the minerals, like I said. I don't take a multiple. I used to take multiple, but I try to get it from eggs. Eggs are like a multiple vitamin.
Yeah, with the yellows, with the yolks?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, the yolks have the great fats in it.
You know, over the years, you go through, eggs are good for you, eggs are bad for you. You know, milk is good for you, milk is bad for you.
Butter.
And so it's like, butter is good for you,
butter
butter's
creates
bad for you.
butyrate.
Right, and
Butyrate's
so,
butyrate.
like, what do you believe? It's like, it just depends on the campaign the government wants to put out there and what's good and what's bad. So I feel like, you know, traditional doctors definitely stay clear of the current kind of scientific approach to medicine. They don't like the HGH. They don't like the TRT or the NAD. They don't like any of these things where on cutting edge kind of scientific medicine, they're doing these and they're seeing such dramatic improvements. So how do you navigate that delta between traditional doctors, what the government's putting out there and what's good and bad for you, and what's really happening at the ground level with people that are using these things?
I think you got to study it. I think you have to question everything. You have to have critical thinking, which a lot of people don't really subscribe to. It's much easier to go with the crowd, and when you see it on TV, you think it must be the way it is, instead of stopping for a moment and going, is this going to benefit me or not? Especially now, there's so much information flooding the internet. You look at this, and this is the way, this is the way, this is the way. You ever seen any of those ads where they start off pulling you in, and then you go, okay, and you wait, and you wait, and you wait, and 20 minutes, 30 minutes later, they're still talking about, you know, how they got started and who they are, and it just wastes so much time, first of all. But then they try to utilize the time, I think, to get you sold on the fact that they know what they're talking about and you have to take it.
Yeah.
And what I do is I go right to the end of it, but you can't fast forward it. So I usually go up and I find out where to get the supplement that they're looking at.
They're selling.
Yeah, and because it's all sales, you know. And I think, okay, let me see what's in it. So I just immediately go to that and go, okay, these are the ingredients. Oh, all right. Well, that's this or that's that.
Right. It's just relabeled, and it's a marketing ploy. But
Same thing.
A lot of that stuff is just things that have been around for a long time. They tweak it out. They make it taste differently. They put a nice fancy label on it, and then they sell it.
You mentioned doctors. Okay, doctors are not trained in this. The doctors I deal with are medical doctors.
Right.
But they're trained in nutrition. They're trained in functional and regenerative medicine. So they see the function is how the body works. So they're aware of that. And it's a different paradigm of thought. A lot of people don't understand that it's not you go to the doctor, he gives you the medication, you know, he meets with you, 5 minutes, 6 minutes, if you're lucky, and then says, what's your problem? Hypertension? Okay, you're taking beta blocker, ARB, whatever it is. If that doesn't work, we try this, we try that.
I'll tell you what, as I've gotten older, you know, and kind of addressing this thing between scientific medicine and traditional medicine, I've definitely leaned more toward the scientific side of things, and I take what a doctor says based on their experience. And like you just mentioned, if a doctor is just a traditional doctor, they're spending 5-6 minutes with you, they're not trained in nutrition, they're not really trained in these other things, they're probably not your best source to tell you what to do and what to take for supplements, and you know whether or not you're a candidate for TRT or you should look at NADs or any of those things.
Mm-hmm.
And
by the way,
you need to get more than one opinion.
Yeah.
And talk to people that really are experienced. And even with that, like not just going to one person that that is dealing with these supplements and injections and so forth. Go to multiple and see if you can get them to all have a consensus.
Well, that's the difficult part. And I'm not bashing doctors. Okay, these guys work hard, long hours, a lot of study. I understand. At the same time, they've got to make a living, and that's how they've set up their business model. So all along, I'm trying to figure out how can you make a good living and yet put the whole picture together so that people get an idea instead of going to the neurologist, the nephrologist, the cardio. You got all these specialists, and nobody puts it together.
Yeah.
So how can you figure out really what the root of the cause is if you don't come together? And nobody asks about diet. They occasionally ask about sleep or something, but they don't really put the whole picture together.
Yeah. That's
the problem. And, a lot of them are at the point where they go, I've done all I can. I can't help you. So what do? Go to another specialist. To another specialist. You've gotten to the point where now you got to go to the psychiatrist because you're going crazy.
Right.
Yep.
And
they don't know what else to do. Yeah. They're great at stabilizing. I tell these docs all the time, especially the ones when I go to the ER and stuff, you are the best in the world at stabilizing, okay? Yeah. After you stabilize someone, send them to someone like me that can figure out why they got the cancer in the first place.
There you go.
So you don't get it again.
The root cause.
And root down and lower the risk of getting it again.
That's right. So you know who Gary Brecka is, right?
Gary Brecka. I don't.
Oh, you don't? Okay. So he talks a lot about, nutrition and health, and he's online and he pushes things. I was just curious.
Oh.
It's a lot of this stuff he talks about, and, there's a lot of controversy around it. But look, I will tell you this. You have done a fantastic job of learning about figuring out how things affect you at the root level, what you're eating, your exercise, your sleep, and all of that. And most doctors don't go to that level. So if somebody wanted to reach out to you, they wanted to learn more, how could they reach you?
Well, they can go on my website. I've got the facility website up. It's www.jjpalms.com.
Spell that out, JJ.
Yeah, 2 J's, JJ. Palms, like a palm tree with an S.
PALMS.com.
Yep. And it'll show basically what I do as far as my facilities. I do some little bit of integrative medicine on there to show what I do in the facilities for the elderly. But I'm starting up a new website called Westside Integrative Medicine, and I've already got the Instagram, and I've got to get the Facebook page, and I've got to get it up and working.
Can they email you?
Sure. Yeah.
What's your email?
John@jjpalms.com.
There you go. Perfect.
Yeah.
So if you guys want to get tested, do this questionnaire. You said it was 60 questions?
About 140.
Oh, I was way off.
That's all right.
140 questions. But that'll help John to kind of figure out what's going on with you. And if you're having any of these digestive issues or sleep issues or any of this sort of thing, he can help.
Yeah, also labs. I can do labs.
And labs too.
I can have them pulled. We can go to, this Quest Lab is all over.
Right.
And so I've got a medical doctor who is he's the medical director of Westside Integrative Medicine. So we can order any labs.
Perfect.
And what I do is I'll just get the labs, put it next to the questionnaire. I mean, it's really comprehensive.
And then you can really figure out the root what's happening.
Yeah.
And you got me these orthobiotic powder here. What is this going to do for me?
Orthomolecular is a great company.
What's this going to do? What is it going to do for me?
It's going to help to provide you with enough of the microbiome that you need to start breaking down your foods. It does so many things.
So it's like a probiotic.
It is a probiotic.
It is.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
It's one of them, and I switch them up. So sometimes
is there a problem with taking different probiotics at the same time?
No, you can take. Sometimes though, when they put them into one formula, they compete. So sometimes one will eat the other.
So if I'm taking a different one, I should stop that when I'm trying this.
I would.
Okay.
I would. And then just change them up.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Well, you're welcome.
All right, guys. I hope you learned a lot today. I know I did. It's a lot of information that was jam-packed in this session. So you know how to reach John if you need him. If we brought you some real value today, like us, follow, subscribe, do all those things. Please share it. We appreciate it. Our audience is growing, and we're bringing on more and more great information here with some great guests. And we look forward to seeing you next time on The Blueprint.